going to learn about the programming language C++ from the very basic, that is level 0 or square 1, whatever you want to say. So these are the topics that we will be covering. Okay? But I will not be reading out these topics to you because I'm pretty sure that all of us have the comprehensive power to understand and read. But I'll not be giving you time. Let's just see. Let's just enjoy all the slides together. So the first thing that everyone. So what I'm hoping is all of us, everyone present in the audience knows what is coding or where it is done, why it is done, right? Yes or no?
I know what I want to know why is it done.
Why is it done? Good question. So why it is done is like we want computers to perform the task, right? There are tasks that human takes a lot of time to do, but some calculation and tasks are done in milliseconds or less, even much less than that in duration of time by the computers. So the computers just understand binary, right? So how can we give commands or how we can tell the computer how to perform a task? For that we do this coding, and coding is like coding. When we do coding, we are using actually a programming language to code. So hope that answers the question because that's the answer. Now the C++ is one of the many programming languages. Right now, if you are in semester 1, you would be doing Python, right? In semester 2, you will be doing C++, and in the end of the semester, you will be doing C. And then there are so many other languages you'll be learning in different stages, okay, of your all the semester in VIT. So C++ is just it's in programming languages. And now what's that? Okay, so let's try to do an autopsy of this first. So it is a language that we humans use to tell the computers how we want any task to be performed by it. Like we want to calculate something, right? So we'll tell the computer that these are the two values on which we want to perform this operation. Okay, we'll give this opera inputs to the computer, and we'll tell the computer how you have to work upon these inputs. So how we are going to do that, because we need to communicate with the computer, right? So we are doing it using this programming language called C++ or any other language. Okay, it's just like a conversation between you and your siblings or anyone, any human. Like I'm conversing with you right now, I'm using the language English. It's just like that. That's just like a basic overview, like just to break the ice. I took this theory. Now let's just jump into the topic. So in C++, while you're writing any code, you need to assign, you will be required to use some values. You will be required to assign some values to variables, and you'll be acting on those variables. Like I just now said, right? You'll give the computer two values to calculate, right? Those two values you will be storing, and upon those values only you will perform task, right? The computer will perform the task. So to store those inputs or inputs, there is certain kind of syntax that we'll be using. So I'll be using a laser pointer. Yeah. So in this line number 8, you can see, okay, so this is int age is equals to 13 semicolon. So in C++, every every coding line ends with a semicolon. So what's a semicolon? That dot and comma. Okay. There are some exceptions where the line will not be ending with this semicolon, and we'll see this those exception in this session itself. Okay. So just hold on to your seats. So this line number 8, coming back to that. So here we have declared a variable, this age. Okay, so I'm giving this variable a name. Okay, I could name it anything. I can name it dinosaur, I can name it anything like Iron Man age, whatever I want. That's for me to know. And I'm assigning it a value 13. And what is this int? Okay, so what are these variables? So when you think of variable, just imagine a box. Okay, and in this box you will be putting values. Okay, and this values will be changeable. Okay, like when you perform active all the task over it, this values will be this value will change. Okay, so this how this box will know which value I will be containing. It cannot be like, okay, I am a universal box, give me everything and I can store anything. That's not how it works. That has a lot of errors it will throw. It's not good. So like this age is a box. Okay, so I'm defining that this age box will store values of the data type int. So what is int? This is an integer. So this container will know that, okay, I'll only allow myself to store integer values. So we are storing 13. Now in case if I would have written int age is equals to 13.4, that would have thrown an error. Okay, so that's there. Now the similar in line number 9, it's a similar example I took to as an example. Int salary is equals to 85,000 semicolon. Now you can see the second 10th line. So area, and we have assigned it a value this, and then now this data type is float. Now this is something new, right? So this data type, you can see it's a decimal number. So when you want to store a decimal number, you use the data type float. Achha, one important thing, all these data types should be in lowercase, but all the variable names could be in capital or anything that you want. For now, you should just focus on that. Now in so 10th, for storing the decimal values, you use the data type float. Now there are some times when you need to store a big decimal number, like in line number 11. So then you will use the data type double. Now read what comment I have written in 12. So in C++, you can just keep this point in your mind. When you want to add comments now, you just use 2 slashes as shown and you write the line. So what are comments? Okay, so I am hoping that if you have done any coding language, you would know, but I'm just telling. Comments are those lines or statements that are not executed by the compiler while their execution is being held. Okay, so why do we use it then? Those comments are used by the programmer or the coder for increasing the readability of the code. It actually makes the code pretty readable by the coder. Okay? So that's why we use. You'll see how much useful it is. Now in line number 13, you can see this new data type, char, right? So what this data type allows us to do? So this data type allows us to store character values. Okay, but there is syntax of this. Here, everywhere for all the data types, it's like you define the data type, then the variable name, then the assignment that is equal to sign, and then the value that you want to store, and then the semicolon. That's it. That's the assignment. That's the syntax for all the assigning of the values. But in 13th, when you're using this character data type, there is some trick, there is some special magic. So what we are doing is when you assign the value now, you have to assign it within single quotation marks. See here in H, you're using a single quotation mark before and after, right? So this is the syntax. You have to remember it. There is no shortcut to that. And in 14th, you can see this bool. So it's the short of boolean. So there are two values that this data type allow, true and false. Now, why do we start with this assigning of values topic when we are learning the C++ coding? It's so simple. Like if as you are using it now, you'll find it pretty simple. And if you were doing like Python, this should seem easy because you can relate to that. Now, why are we taking so much time in doing this? Because when you're writing a big program now, a small error in these lines make the whole program throw error. Okay, so just be careful when you're doing that with time. So for reference, I've added this table as well. So while you are revising all the topics of this session, you can refer to this table. So you'll get what I was explaining. Okay, so now what we'll do is I'll show you something. Like we'll just make the session more interactive. Give me a time. Okay, so I'll show you now how you will be opening the online compiler in your browser. So you can actually download a local compiler on your desktop or on your laptop. And how to do that? You can use YouTube to do that. But for this session, I'll be using an online compiler, and you can also use that. Actually, I prefer, I'll tell you to use it during your classes as well, but just make sure that you don't lose the code, because that's one of the disadvantage. You often end up losing the code. So how you will do it is you will write C++ online compiler, and you'll click on it, and then you'll open. I'm using the Programmy's online compiler because that's good. So I'll just, so you can see you can actually change the design, but I'm using white because most people feel comfortable in that. So input and output. So why do we need input and output when you're, yeah, this slide is sharing. So why do we need input and output? Okay. So when you write any code in any language, there are some requirements for it to be able to execute. It should at least have one input. It should have at least one desired output. So input. So you should know how to take input from the user, right? And you should also know how to print that output. Okay. So that's like the basic and the most common part of the part of any C++ code. So right now we are just going to see how we will do that. So I have already written the code, and I'm just copying. I will copy and paste it to save the time. Okay, so now we'll just do the autopsy of what we have written. Okay, so this is the most basic, yet yeah, this is the first code that you will write in C++. You would have written some similar version of it in Python as well. Okay, so let's do it. So what's the first line says, right? So it's hash include, and in less than and greater than bracket inside it, it is written IOStream. Okay, so that IOStream is actually a header file that allows us to display the output. Just think of it as in a library. So when the compiler will be executing the code now, it will just see, okay, this is the library they are using, and I'll use all the specified commands in this library. Okay, now just don't think a lot on that, because this just have a basic knowledge of these things. You are fine even without knowing all this knowledge, but I don't want you to feel lost when you see the first code. So I'm explaining it. So in the second line, it's written using namespace std. Okay, so now just listen to me what I'm saying. It might sound confusing, but just hear me out. So the cout object is defined inside the std namespace. To use the std namespace, we use the using namespace std semicolon statement. So what we are saying here. So std is actually used to define some of the commands that we will be using in C++. Mostly those are the commands of cout and cin. If you have done C code, C language, you would be familiar with scanf and printf. And if you're doing Python, there is print, right? So similar to those. So when you want to use those commands, you have to specify this line. Okay. Now coming to the third line of the code, that is int main round bracket open and close, and the start of the curly bracket, and inside that some lines are written, okay, and the close, and then at the very end you can see the curly bracket closing, right? So what's happening there? Now let's see. So every C++ program starts with the main round bracket open close function. The code execution actually begins from here. When the compiler will be coding now, when the compiler will be compiling the code and executing it, it will just refer, okay, this library I have to use to execute all the codes that have been written. But this is the part I have to start executing from. So the compiler knows from this int main, and every C++ program has this. Now the cout. So I've mentioned the cout, right? So you can see it in this here also, the cout, right? So this is actually similar. If you have done Python that you are doing right now, the cout you can relate to, like it's similar, like in mathematics we say, right? Similar triangles. So it's similar to print statement. So this print, instead of print, we use cout in C++. And then we have this operator. This operator, you can read it as less than an operator. And now we have this statement that we want to print, and then we have a semicolon to close it. And here you can see I have written a comment. So that's the We'll see more on the cout, but let's look at the last thing that's written. So you can, at the very end, before the closing curly bracket, you can see written 0 semicolon, right? So that is actually a exit status of the main function. Whenever this actually tells the compiler, okay, the executing portion of the code ends here. Okay, so the compiler knows, okay, the my job is done, and it just comes out and here shows you the output. Okay, so in any, so you can see, I'll just tell you. I'll actually see. These 5 lines are the most common lines in any C++ program. In any C++ program that you can find, you will find these 5 lines. Okay, that you will be using in VIT at least for the first 3 semester. So these 5 lines are the most common, and now in the main program you will be adding more body based on what is your desired task. For that you will be using different kind of statements and all. You'll be seeing those. So now what is our aim of this code? Okay, we want to print a statement. So we'll just run it, okay, and you'll just see what is printed. Part of the journey is the end. It's a very famous line of Endgame. Okay. Leaving that, so this is a syntax. So what is the syntax of cout? This is important. Just see. So cout, you write cout, less than sign, and then you type the text between the double quotation mark, text or text, okay, and then you close it with a semicolon. Okay. Now there is also an alternate way where you can do it. Okay. So this alternate way is, after this text you will add this less than sign again, and you will type endl. Okay, I'll show you like what's the difference of this endl. See, now if I'm just copying pasting this thing again, like that is, I want to print the same statement twice. How it will actually be? See, what can you observe? Can anyone tell me? Okay, I'm telling myself. So what you can observe is both the statements are printed side by side. There is no line gap in between them. Even there is no horizontal gap. Okay, so that's not desirable. Like it's not quite readable. Okay, so how we can like make the next line, next statement, that second statement to print from the next new line, fresh line? So there is 2 ways to do that. One is you use this slash sign and n. So this allows you to start from a horizontal line. See, okay, see, now it's much more beautiful, right? It will, the second statement will start from the, will be printed from the new line. And there is another way to do it. This way is quite, good one. I'll recommend this. So you add this less than operator, and then you type endl. So it is similar to what you did. Okay, it is similar to what was that slash n doing. See, it will produce the same output. There is a lag. See, okay, I have pressed it 2 times, so it is showing 4 times. See, it is producing the same result as it was producing with that slash n. So now you know how to print anything, any statement in C++. That's pretty big deal. First program done already. Now, any doubts still here? Ask me any 2 questions. Go on.
Which one is faster, endl or slash n?
Huh?
Which one is faster, endl or slash n?
Endl, like there's no difference in both of that, but it's advised to use endl.
Slash n is faster.
No, there is no, you can use any local compiler and see the time. There is no difference in that.
Endl adds a flush command after slash n. It's just the same thing without the flush command. For competitive programming, they recommend to use slash n.
Slash n.
Yes.
Okay. So you want me to use that?
क्वेश्चन पूछने बोल रहे, पूछा बस.
Okay. Good. Appreciate it. Okay. So any other question you guys have or girls have? Okay. So now let's try to see moving ahead. If you have doubt, you can still ask. Okay. It's not like I'll kill anyone. I've written this code as well and I'm just pasting it. So in this code, what we want to do is we want to take the input from the user. Okay, like I told the example, if you want to perform a calculation on two numbers, suppose addition, multiplication, or division. So you need to give the computer two values, right? So either you can give it while you're declaring the variable, that is assigning the value to the variable, or you can give it while execution. Okay, when the compiler is executing, it will ask at that moment like what values you want to store, and the user will enter those values and it will be then worked upon. So this part of the code we have already seen. Okay, so no use of, like, we will not be going through that. So in line number 6, you can see we are declaring a variable called num. So this is a technical term. Okay, so what we did in slide number 1, that is the first topic that we took, assigning values to variables. It's a technical term, declaring any variable. So you'll get used to it. So don't panic, because that's what we did in our time in second semester. So this, we declare a variable. We have not assigned any value to it yet. Now we are using the cout. Okay, it's good. We have already seen this. And we know the syntax as well. We have used this operator, less than operator. Then we want to print this text. Okay, and then we have ended this line of code with semicolon. Now we are using, this is something new, right? The cin. Okay, so if you have used C language, C, when you want to take input now, you use cin. I don't want to give more similarities, otherwise many people will get in a panic mode. Okay, I don't know that. So let's not do that. So we use cin. Okay, and then we are giving this operator sign, and then we are telling like which value. So the compiler would be like, okay, you want me to take some value, but where to store it? So you're telling the compiler, okay, store it in this variable. What variable? Num variable in this program. Okay, now there is something different in this two lines. Don't tell me the text. Okay, this line number 7 and 8. Can anyone tell me? At least can anyone see that? Yes or no? Okay, 7-second rules, done. I'm telling it myself. So this operator sign, see, both are different. When you're using cout, you're using less than operator. Okay, and when you're using cin, you're using greater than operator. This is just the syntax. Okay, this is how this language was designed. So syntax of cin would be this. Yeah. So, and then we are printing what value we store. So how this code, okay, let's run this code and see. There's some delay, that's not, no. I'll just run it again. So now what it is asking, enter any integer that you want to store. Okay, so can anyone just throw any number at me? I'll just type that. Any number, any integer number.
7.
7, good, thank you.
9.
79? So someone said 7, right? Okay.
69.
Can anyone tell the other person? Can you tell that number again? We'll just take that number.
69.
69. Okay. See, prints it. Works fine. Okay. So what is happening here? Okay, the statement was printed. It asked. We gave it a value. This value was stored in some num. Okay. Now there is something more good. Like if you have an observant or keen eye, you would have seen that this cout is little bit different of what we have seen in the last code and what it is there in line number 7. Okay, so I'll tell you what was different here. See, after this text was printed now, then we use this operator again. Okay, we have done that earlier as well. And now we are specifying this number. Okay, so when you want, there are situations when you don't want to print only the text or statements. Okay, there are situations when you want to print the values that are stored in variable. Okay, so in that case you just type cout, and then you, if you want some text, you type that, similar to all the syntax we have seen in last two programs, and then we tell the variable name. Okay, so whatever variable value is assigned to this variable, it will be printed. Okay, and then we end the program with return 0, and this small thing that is very important, semicolon, and that's done. You now know how to take input. Okay, so any doubts? Any two doubts?
No.
No doubt. Good. If you have doubt, you can ask. Okay, so now let's just go back to the PPT. Just a second. Okay, now you guys will be seeing the PPT. So all the codes that I have here written till now, it's there. So I was going slow because, first code. Now you know how to write basic input and outputs. We have also done, like, there are cases when you need to print the variables other than text. So we have also already covered that. And this slide, I wanted to tell you that these 5 lines will be used in every C++ program that you're going to write. Okay, so the slide was this. Now we are entering into the next topic of C++. Okay, so till now what we have covered is, we know how to declare variables or assign values to the variables. You can say it in either way. And the second topic is decision making. So what it is, there are cases. Okay, I'll just take an example. Suppose your parents say, if you score 20 on 20, we'll go to mall. This is a decision. Okay, so there is a condition if, and what is that condition? 20 on 20. And if that condition is true, what will happen? We'll go to the mall. Okay, that's what written on the slide. Okay, now you now know, like, example of what we mean when we say decision making in C++. Now in the top right corner you can see these 4 things, right? So there are 4 kinds of decision making statements in C++. First is if, second is if else, third is nested if, and fourth is nested if else. That's what's written. Now just don't get into panic mode. We'll be covering this one by one, and it is really simple. I just want to make a clear image in your mind. That's why I listed it, not to make you panic. Now, so first statement, decision making statement that we are going to take is if. So here is the syntax of if. So we wrote if in small letters, and then you can take this space. It's like, you can avoid it as well, or you can take it. It depends upon the coder. And then you take the round bracket, open and close, and inside that you type the condition. That condition, based on the desired task you want to perform, you specify the condition, and then this curly bracket specifies the body of if, like from where the body of if starts and where it ends. Okay, this is the syntax of if. So we'll just see this flow chart here, and it will make things really clear. So this is the compiler. So the compiler starts the program. When it starts to execute the program, in the program it comes to this if statement. So it just reads the statements and see if this statement is true according to the input that we have given. If it is true, the compiler will go here and it will execute the if code. And then after executing, it will execute the code that is there after the if body. Okay, and then the program will end. This is one case. Now there is also a second case. Okay, there are chances that you will not score 20 on 20, right? So what will happen in that case? So in that case, this path is what the compiler will follow. It will follow this path, and it will go and it will directly execute the body of the code after if code will be executed. That is, it is skipping the if body. Okay. Now what I just explained in this flow chart is being explained in this box. Okay. I have just inserted it so you can revise the topics afterwards. Now the second decision making statement is if and else. Okay. Now the example that I'm going to give, it will make. Okay. So if you score 20 on 20, we'll go to mall. Otherwise, we will go to eat pani puri. Okay. So now you know, if the condition is true, this will happen, and if it is false, this will happen. Okay. So that's what it is. So if it's similar to what we saw in the last slide. So if the condition, the body of if, and then there is an else. Okay. And there you can see the open and closing curly bracket and body of if. So that's the syntax of if and else statement. Now we'll see the flow chart again. So the compiler comes, starts, reads the statement, see if it is true. If it is true, it will execute the body of if, and then it will go and execute the body or after if, and then the program ends. Now there is also a case where this condition will not be true. When it is false, this compiler will follow this path and execute the code of else. Okay, code that is the body of else, and after executing that, it will just go and execute the body after if, like after this if statement, whatever the portion of code, whole code is left, that will be executed, and then the program will terminate. So this is if else. Don't just keep in mind this syntax and all the explanation. You can go through the slide just to revise, in case just those syntax are what is important. So here now we are going to see the nested if and else. Nested if and else is like what? Just see. So this is something similar. Third time we are seeing it. If space you can omit this, and then the condition 1, and then the print. Okay, I'll just explain it via the example. Okay. So just hear me. If you score 20 on 20, we'll go to mall. But if you score less than 20 but greater than 15, we'll go to eat pani puri. But if you score less than 15, we will not go anywhere. So this is what nested if and else is. Okay. So this first condition is, so when you will score 20 on 20, the body of first if will be executed. Okay. But if you score less than 20 but greater than 15, the body of else if will be executed. And if neither of these conditions are true, okay, directly this third body will be executed, that is less than 15. Now there is a fun fact. Okay, so based on what code or what task you have been given to solve via C++, you can use like a lot of else if. So every nested else if will have only one if and one else, and you can add as many else if as you want, 4, 5, 6, based on your desired task. And the clarity on more on this topic will come as you will be solving more and more questions. So 2 or 3 questions, and then that's it. These are easy topics. You can just do it. Now the fourth one, that is the nested if. See, it's easy now. Now this is the first if, and inside this body of if, we have the second if, and then the second if ends, and then the first if ends. So let's understand it via an example. So if A is greater than B, okay, so if that is true, this body of first if will be executed. Now, if A is greater than C, then the body of second if will be executed. Okay. But if A is greater than B and less than C, this body will be skipped and we'll just execute the first body, and that's it. Now you just know the syntax, and it might be confusing to you. Now we'll take just an example and it will be like really clear to you. So this is the problem or example that we'll be taking. So you all are freshers, so it's like a duty of seniors to tell you. So all the coding courses that you will be taking for the next 3 semesters or all the semester ahead of you, there will be examination, right? So CAT 1, CAT 2, and FAT. So BIT has its own portal where it takes examination, BPropel. So simple problems will be given in word problem wise. Okay, so there are chances you can get this question and it will be explained. Okay, like this is how the input should be, output should be. So it's like most of the questions are really good, and all the questions would help you create logic. So what is the question? Find the largest number among the three numbers. So you guys can take understand now what is the input. Yes or no? The input will be three numbers, A, B, C, let's say, or P, Q, R. Okay. And what we need to perform? We need to output the largest number among these three. So how we can perform it? We can either perform it using if statement alone, or we can use it if and else statement, or we can use nested if and else. Okay, let's just try to see. So this first code is, okay, any doubt? Till here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you have doubt, you can stop, okay? Yes, no, maybe.
No.
Okay, thank you. So now we are going to solve this question using if only. So the second, third, fifth line we know. Now we are in sixth line, we are declaring three variables, n1, n2, n3. And what is the data type? Float. That is decimal number it will store. Now we are printing this statement, enter three numbers. Okay, so this is output. Now in line 9, C in. So three inputs we are taking. See how we are taking. In single line, we are taking input of 3. Okay, so how you will type it? Okay, you'll see in the output screen. So n1, n2, n3. So now the user will enter three numbers and those three numbers will be stored. Now see this from 11 to 18. This is the if part. Now just see this first if. Okay, syntax. Here we have not used the space as I have told. You can use a space between this bracket and if, and you can omit it as well. Both will work. Now see the condition here. The n1 is greater than or equal to n2. And this double end is like logic gate. You might have studied it in 12th, or like and. Like both this condition will be true, then only this body will be executed. Any other case, this body will be skipped. Okay, that means this double and signature na, ampersand symbol. So that's like and condition. So n1 should be greater than or equal to n2, and at the same time it should be greater than and equal to n3. Okay, you can just understand the logic and you will understand what is happening. So A is greater than B, as well it is greater than C. Then the largest number would be A. So we'll print the largest number is A, that is n1. Now similarly, we'll do that for B. Suppose this statement is not true. Okay, so we now know A is not the largest number. So B, we will compare B to A and C. And if this is true, B will be largest and we'll print that. Now we'll do that if this is also not true. That is A is also not there. B is also not the largest. Now C would be there. But since we are using only if and statement, we are typing it. We're comparing C with A and B. And if C is greatest, this will be printed. So this is the output on the right hand side, you can see. So how like the output screen would ask us, enter three numbers. How you will enter three numbers? You'll enter three numbers and you'll separate it by space. Okay, so I would have written 122 space 23 space 19. That would have just worked. Okay, and then in a matter of seconds, like milliseconds, the output is written. The largest number is 23 here. It just tells us that. Now we'll take the second part. Yeah.
Why didn't we use curly braces after if statements?
Because see, in single line code, they're a nice question. So in when the body of if contains, okay, any looping decision making statement or looping statement contains only one line of code, you can omit those brackets. But if you want, you can use it. Okay. If you want, you can enter those curly brackets and it would work. Yeah, and one this question reminded me of one thing. In the starting, I told there are exceptions where the line of code will not be using semicolon to end, right? And it would work just fine. See, can you see in line number 11, when we write this if and the condition, we are not putting the semicolon. and still we are getting the output, valid output, that too. Okay, so just remember, if else. Okay, all the decision making, when you specify the condition, you don't end it with semicolon. Directly you end it when you end the body of that if. Okay. Now we are just doing it using if and else. So now it's easy, you got the logic. So here, now what we are doing is, if we are comparing A with B and we are comparing A with C, and if both of these conditions are true, A will be largest. Okay. Now we are using else if. Now suppose A is not big, so now we will compare B with A and C. If this both condition true simultaneously, B will be printed. But if A is not largest, B is not largest, it is logical that C will be the largest among all the three, right? So the third one will be printed. So this code, right? So it actually, can you see, like in the previous one, we had to describe, like we need to specify 3 conditions. Now we only had to describe only 2 conditions. Yeah, it saves time and it's more clean. Now the output, we have taken different numbers. See, I have in the last one, I have specified float, but I have given only integer number and it works still fine. Okay. Now here in float, I have taken 1 decimal number in the output just to show you like how it works. 99.9 space 19 space 21. The largest one is printed. Okay. So this is the second decision making statement we have seen. Now we'll do the same question using nested if and else. So we specified the variables. We asked the user to enter the numbers. Okay, fine. Now in the 9th line, you can see we are asking like if A is greater than B, that is N1 is greater than or equal to B, the body of this will be executed. So what does the code has? So if A is greater than B, okay, this body will, the compiler will enter into this body. Now the compiler will see, okay, there is one more condition I need to see. So now if A is greater than C, then A will be the greatest one. Okay. But if A is not greater than C, A is less than, then C will be the largest one. Are you getting the logic? Like think it on your own, like take a pen and paper and you will just get this logic. Okay. Now we did it with A. Now if A is not greater than B, we'll do the same thing but with B. We'll compare B with C. Now if B is greater than or equal to C, B will be the greatest. Okay? And if B is not greater than C, what will happen? C will be the greatest. This code is like more good. Now the same output will be, so in output you will not know what you are using. It depends on the code that you're writing. So now we have done the 2 topics in C++. First, we know how to specify or declare variables in C++. Second was an important topic called decision making. So there are 4 types of decision making statements: if else, nested if, and nested if else. Now we are entering into the 3rd topic. Any doubts till now?
No.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anyone else has doubt, you can ask. Okay. You can, and if you're not comfortable, you can just text and someone will read out your question to me. Okay, now the question, the 3rd topic that we are entering is looping. So why do we need this topic now? Let's understand this. So there are stages when we need to perform a same task repeatedly. Okay, suppose if your mother is making chapatis or rotis, okay, so she'll have to do the whole process again and again for each person. Okay, it's thinking like if there are 5 members and each member will eat 3 rotis. Okay, so she'll be repeating the same thing. Na? She'll make that ball and like she'll make a circle of it and then fry or whatever you can say, make the roti. So instead of writing the code again and again and again, you can just use this loop. Okay, you'll give it a condition until and unless this condition is true. Repeat this process, and as soon as this condition turns to false, come out of this and continue the rest of the code. It's easy, right? It saves a lot of space and it's easy to check for errors. It is really more efficient. Okay, so that's why we use this looping in C. So now you can see there are 3 kinds of looping statements in. Okay, there are actually 2. kinds of loop in C++, for loop and while, and the switch is a different, like a special thing. We'll see that too. So now we'll go one by one over these. So the syntax for loop is this. So for, and then we have this initialization. That is, in this for, we will be declaring the variable itself. You can, declaring the variable itself. Then you separate this initialization is separated, ended, like how will be the compiler know that, okay, the initialization has been done. So you'll add a semicolon, and then you'll take a space, or you can avoid the space. It's like you can omit again. It's based on your choice. Then you'll give the condition. What is this condition? So the compiler will know until till this condition is true, I'll keep repeating this for body. Okay, and as soon as it turns false, I'll just come out of this for body and this update. That is what, like how the next, like if you want to increment, like if you want to print 5 values, okay, so 1, after 1 you need to go to 2, right? Okay, and then 3 and 4. This is the update. That is what action has been taken on this initialized variable. You'll understand better with the code. Okay, so this is a flow chart. What I have explained is recorded here. So you can, for revision, I have added it. Now we'll just take this, code. Okay, now just look at this code. Most of the lines are common, just this for. So in this for, okay, we have taken the space. This you can avoid it, or you can have it. So this for space bracket, and inside the bracket we have this syntax. So let's just try to do an autopsy of this. So this first, before this semicolon and in this opening round bracket, you can see int I is equals to 1, right? This is something similar to what we did in the first topic of today, right? We're declaring a variable called I, okay, and we are assigning it a value of 1, and we are also specifying what this variable will be, what kind of data it will be storing, right? The data type of I is int. Okay, so we are giving the for loop. Okay, this is your working, like this is the input you'll be working on. Now you see there is a condition. Okay, what is that condition? Till I is less than or equal to 5, the body of for should be executed repeatedly. So this is the condition that we have provided. Now you can see this plus I. This is the increment. Okay, so there is actually another thing. I'll just use a pen to write that. Okay, so instead of this I plus I, we could write minus I as well. So, okay, in case you want to go from back. So if I give I is equals to 5, and I give the statement like till I is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, greater than or equal to 1 if we want to print natural numbers. Then, and if we give this, okay, instead of this plus I, the numbers will be printed like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in the descending order. Okay, now going back to the pointer again, laser. So this is the statement body of for, then the starting of for. Okay, see, the person who was asking this doubt here, see, again it is a 1-line code, right? You could avoid this brackets, or you can have this bracket. It's up to you. But as you will be typing, you will start to avoid it, but sometimes you will not, because that makes it clear. The code is clear till some time. So now we have output, we have given the value, and we have given the space. Okay, so it is not, the output is not messy. Now the return. Now you can see this output screen. So how the values are printed? 1 space 2 space 3 space 4 space 5. If I would have not given the space, now what would happen was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Without any space, it would be given. Okay, and yeah, that's the thing. So this is the for loop. Okay, now this is a problem statement, that like an example that we have taken. So what is the example? Read. So what we want to do in this problem example is we want to display the multiplication table of up to any given range. So what does that mean? So I will ask the user which number, like for which number you want the multiplication table. So in this output, you can see I asked that, and the user said, okay, I want the table for 8. Now I ask what is the range. So he or she says 12. So till 8 times 12, I have displayed the output. Are you getting it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So now going in the code, so you can see all these basic things we declared. These are the common lines. We declared there are two variables. See how you can declare two variables in the same declaration line. Int n comma, you can take this space or you can avoid this space. So comma, range and semicolon. So what we have told the compiler that we are having two variables, namely n and range, of the same data type int. But if you want to declare different data type, you have to use a new line. Suppose int n and range float a, semicolon. Okay. Now we have this output statement, then we have input, we are taking the value of n from the user, then we have asked for the range, we have taken the value of range from the user. Now we are using the for statement. What? We are declaring in a variable called I, then we are closing the initialization with a semicolon, then we are giving the condition. See what the condition is. Till I is less than or equal to range. Now can anyone tell me like what is I in this table? Okay, so now we have taken the value of 8. So this 8 is n. Okay, it is common for all the multiplication that we are performing. Okay, now this range, okay, I. So this I would be, I think it would be this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 till the range last digit. Don't you think? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes. Now we have given like what is the task that is to be performed on the initialized variable. That is plus plus increment of I, plus plus I. Now see, still it is one line code. I could have avoided this bracket, but I'm doing it. Okay, it's avoidable. So I give the open and close bracket for the body of for, and this is C out. So this design, okay, to have this like this space between this asterisk and 8, I have to put it. Okay, if you can see, I have provided it between the quotation mark. So this is the style. You will get it when you write the code. You'll be doing that in Python as well. So this is the code and it will follow. We have given the n, then this, and then I. This is changing in every line, right? 1, 2, 3 till 12. Then equal to sign, then you do this. This is an operation that is performing. That is n times I will be printed. So 8 times 1 will be printed, 8 times 2 will be printed, 8 times 3 will be printed, so on till 8 times 12. And then we are giving it ended. That's why after this, we are starting from the new line. Otherwise, it would have been continued in the same line. Okay. And that's the end of the program. So this is the topic number 2. So moving ahead, this is the while loop. So for and while loop. So this is the syntax for while loop. And this is pretty much common to if, right? Same syntax. Now we are taking the same question that we took for so that you can compare. So we are declaring the variable I, and now we are declaring the variable I, and then we are taking the while, and inside the bracket we are giving the condition. Okay, till I is less than or equal to 5, the body of while will be executed. This is like what is happening in this code. So we have while, we are given this condition, then the body of while. See, now you cannot omit this brackets. Okay, why you cannot omit? Because you are writing two codes. Suppose if you are omitting now, so the compiler will think, okay, under this while only this C, this is there. So you know what will be happening? It will just keep on like it will be a non-terminating program. 5 5 5 5 like what, like 1 na 1 1 1 1 1 1. It will go on. That is not a proper program. So you need to specify this curly bracket now. And now you have given that update, right? This update is given inside the body of while. Can you see the difference? The initialization is done outside, and even the update is specified inside the body of while. So first the I is equals to 1 will be printed, then I will be incremented, so it will become 2. Now when the while condition is checked, we are comparing 2 is less than or equal to 5. It is true, right? Now the body of while will be executed. So that's there. This same output, so the same output space appears. Now we will take this question. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you will not be knowing Fibonacci sequence. So what it is? So the thing is, we start adding the two numbers. Okay. So these two numbers are common for anything. So you'll add 0 and 1 and you'll get 1. Now you'll add 1 and 1, you'll get 2. Now you'll add 1 plus 2, 3. 2 plus 3, 5. 3 plus 5, 8, and so on. Like 13 plus 8, 21. So this is the Fibonacci series. So we just enter. So this is the code. Okay, so we specify three variables of the data type int, 0 and 1. Why did we do that? Because 0 and 1, that's where this Fibonacci series will start. Okay, and the next term, we are taking the value to be 0, like an initial thing. Okay, it will keep on changing. Like for initialization, we have done it, next term is equals to 0, and then we are also declaring a term called n. Now we are asking the user to enter any value of n. So now just see, like we have written n is equals to 100 from the user. We have received this. So now we will display the first two terms, which is always 0 and 1. So you just give the Fibonacci table and you just print 1, T1, that is 0, comma, T2, comma, and that's all. Now you are telling the operation, that is next term is equal to T1 plus T2. Okay, just see. So T1 plus T2, first case it is 0 plus 1, that is 1. Okay. Now see this while loop. This is where the magic is happening. In this while loop, the condition is till the next term is less than or equal to n, the body of file will be continuing. So this body of file will continue like the next term is printed, then comma. Now what you are doing is 1 will become, see, in first this is T1 and this is T2. You will add this and you'll get this next term. Now what you will do, you will make this as T1, this as T2, and you'll get the next term, right? So that is what we are doing. We are making T1 as T2, and we are making T2 as next term, and next term will be T1 plus T2. Now if you want to understand it more clearly, now you have to take a pen and paper and try to give it or like try to work it out. Like see, you just start from 0 and 1 and you keep it doing till n, that is 100 in this example, comes. So see, less than 100, 89. As soon as you 89 plus 55, it's greater than 100. That's where this Fibonacci table is. For this example, it's terminating. This code is kind of like a hot question, so keep it in mind, you should try it. It was a pretty fun question when we did it. Now there is a special variant of this while loop that is called do while loop. So what's the syntax? So the syntax is do, body of do, and then while and condition. So what is different? Okay, the thing that is different is in do while, the body of do will be executed at least once, and after that only it will see, okay, whether the condition is true or not. Even if the condition is false in the first try itself, once the body will be executed. See here. So we are using doing the same question. Okay, printing the first 5 natural numbers and include. Okay, then this and this. We declared the variable called I, assigned it a value 1. Now in the do statement, we are declaring in the body cout. Can you see? Cout I is equals to like space for a problem, and then we increment that value. So in the first time, what will be printed? Can anyone tell me? Give it a try.
1.
Yes, very good. So this will be printed without comparing. We have not given, or the compiler has not come face to face with any condition to compare. Okay, so the compiler will print 1 regardless whether the condition is found to be true or not. Now the compiler like, okay, there is a condition that I need to check. Now it will see, okay, I have to compare the value of I should be less than or equal to 5. If it is true, it will go and execute the body of do again. If it is false, it will just go, okay, next thing. That is written and the program will end. See, so after 1, so this value is 1. The first it prints 1. Okay, let me do it again. So we assigned the value 1. We printed the value 1. Now we incremented the value from 1 plus 1, that is we add 1 to 1. so it becomes 2. Now we'll compare this 2 with 5. It is less. Yes, the condition is true. This body will be repeated again. Now it will print 2. Okay, and now 2 plus 1, it will become 3. Now I will have the value 3. Now 3 will be compared with 5. Is it less than or equal to 5? Yes, it is. So now again this do will be compared. So we'll jump to the value 4. Suppose it printed 4 and now it becomes 5. Okay, so I now becomes 5 in the line number 9. Now I'll compare 5 is less than or equal to 5. It is, right? It is equal to 5. So now it is, again it will go do, it will print 5 and after 5 it will become 6 in line number 9. Now you'll compare 6 less than or equal to 5. Now this statement is false. Now it will be like, okay, now I don't have to print the, or that is execute the body of do. It will just follow the afterwards of this do while, that is return 0 and the program terminates. So see, 1, 2, 3. So in all the 3 looping things that we have seen, that is for, while and do while, we use the same question, got the same output in the same format, but you have seen what was the difference in the syntax, where we were using the parenthesis, where the ending was not, and the line of the code was not ending with semicolon, right? So that's the thing. And don't worry, like if you are listening, you will be able to revise all the codes again. Just open the online coder and online compiler and just try to type out the codes. So this is, I just for referring, so you can refer to this explanation in this table. I found this on it. It's good. So you can understand why this, what I explained just now. Now, as I told you, there is a something magical statement, right? A switch statement. So this is the topic. Now, like, let's try to read what's written. The switch statement allows us to execute a block of code among many alternatives. What is this? Now just see this flow chart first of all. So there is an expression. Okay. So expression. So there for an expression, suppose A we are giving. So suppose there are 5. So your parents are like, okay, I'm giving out this 5 papers. Whatever you will choose will go to that place. So suppose the values of that you are offered are 1, 2, 3. Suppose. Okay. So if you pick one, okay, suppose the expression is you picking any chit. Okay, and after picking the chit, you're getting the value 1. Okay, this is the value 1. If it is equal to 1, that is a constant 1, this will happen. Suppose you will go to mall. Okay, and you'll go to mall, and that is where the switch terminates. Khatam baat. But suppose you pick a chit with the number 2 on it. That is constant 2. That is, it is not equal to 1. So now the compiler will go, okay, let me compare to the next constant. So it compares to constant number 2. If it is true, this will be executed. Okay, we'll execute this block. That is, we'll go to Pani Puri, eat Pani Puri. And then the program terminates. That's it. Now suppose if it is the chit that you chose is neither 1 or neither 2, then the compiler will be like, okay, it is not equal to 1. Okay, it follows this part. And then it compares with compiler constant 2. It is not equal again, so it will follow this part. Then it will compare with 3. Okay, now if it is equal to 3, it will follow this path. Now if it is not equal to even 3, like that was all the options that were provided. So we provide a default case in that scenario. Like agar in case if all the alternative that we are providing in the code are not being, like it's not equal to that, the expression is not having the value equal to that, we are like, just in case, like your parents are like, either we will go to mall, either we'll go to boating, either we'll go to eat pani puri, and in case you are like, okay, I cannot choose, I am really indecisive person, papa mommy, you just tell me what to do. So they are like, okay, we'll just take a walk around the park. So that is like the default code. Saste mein nipta rahe. Yeah. Now this is the syntax of switch. So this switch is like really fun thing. Okay, so switch space, this you can omit or not. This is avoidable again. Then the expression that you want to compare. So it can be A or any condition. Then you give this starting parenthesis. Then case. This is like a keyword. This violet things are a keyword. So when the compiler comes face to face with this case, it is like, okay, I have to compare with this constant, the expression. If it is equal, I'll execute this code. If it is not equal, I'll just compare with the second. See, so this case 1, it goes, okay, it is equal. Okay, I'll just execute, and now this break. It is like, okay, done. Now it is break. So it will just come to the end of the switch, like it's a jump. Now suppose it is not equal to constant 1. It is now the compiler will check it with constant 2. Okay, it is equal. Now it will execute this body. Okay, and as soon as this body is like done, it comes with face to face with this line, break semicolon. It is like, okay, it's done. Now it will come jump to the end of switch, and that's like the remaining part of the code will be executed, or that's the end of the code. Now suppose it is not equal to 1, 2, and whatever condition you have provided, then it is default. Like that, okay, we'll take a walk in the park. This default is like default, and here you will not say break, because directly the compiler will be like, okay, the closing parenthesis is face to face. It knows now. It is a smart thing, compiler. So this is the switch case. So now I'm telling you, this is the homework. Okay. So the switch statement, and I'm already giving you the question. Now try to create a calculator with a switch statement. I'll give you like what I'm expecting. So in a calculator, you will give two. Okay, we are going basic. So you need to take 2 input values from the user, and you have to ask from the user like what operation you want to perform. So there are 4 operations. Suppose plus, minus, multiplication, and division. If they choose plus, you have to add a plus b. If they choose multiplication, you have to do a into b. Okay. If they choose division, you have to do a divided by b. Now suppose if they gave something absurd, like they gave you hash symbol, or if they gave you ampersand symbol, or if they gave you the @ symbol, so that's like not specified now. For that case, you will use the default. You will be like, man, this operation does not exist. I cannot do that. You can be like that. So this is the homework that I'm giving. But in case, like if you do and you want to tally like what answer you are getting, I have provided the code in this PPT. You can refer to that. And if you are not, like you are not going to try, just read the code. But you'll forget that. When you work it out, that's when you remember things. That's when you remember the logic. It's just like math. Okay, so this is the code and this is the output. See, we'll just go through the output. We asked the user which operation you want to do. They told, okay, they want to do multiplication. Then we asked them to enter 2 numbers. They entered 19 and 21. And when they share, the output that we get is 399. You can check it with the calculator. I would have shown, but we are running late on time, so I'm not showing, but you can tell it. It's correct. I first
You forgot to mention one thing, that switch statements don't work with every single data type. It doesn't work with float, double, or string. It works only with integer or character.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, I did forget. So it's okay, my bad. It works only with integer data type as told by the worthy audience member. Okay. Now we are done with the assigning, that is declaration of variable. Second, we are done with the decision making statement. Third, we are done with the looping statement. Now we are entering into the 4th topic in C++, that is arrays. Now just when you are seeing arrays, imagine matrices that you would have studied in class 12 or 11, in year +2 matrices. So there was 1D, okay, there were 2D, and 3D you would have not imagined till now, but 2D you have, okay. Now in C++, this array is actually a storing kind of thing. It's a variable where you can store multiple values, but here is the trick. You are storing values of the same data type. Either that whole matrix will have float, either it will have int, or either it will have character, but it will not be like, okay, one element is of character, one element is of int, one is of double, one is of float. Okay, so that's not how it works. That's just the simple condition that you need to keep in mind. They can form some tricky question over it. Now, to understand this topic, I have taken quite an unique example. If you can, like, I'll read it out to you. Just listen, okay? Suppose if you want to store the data of how many pancakes were distributed among Doraemon, Nobita, Shizuka, Jian, and Sunio. Okay, suppose we want, this is the task that we want to perform. Okay, Dora cake, you know, na? If you would have seen that popular cartoon, you know that. So that's what we have. That's the task we want to perform using C++. So that's when we use the concept of array. Instead of creating 5 separate variable like Doraemon is equals to this, Nobita is equals to this, Shizuka is equals to this, Shunyo. So what we are doing is, wait a second. Give me a minute. Okay, I'm back. So this is the top question that we have, right? So instead of creating 5 different variables, we can just use arrays. And since we are having the number of pancakes, we are supposing that that is like integer, full, nothing half. Okay. So this is like, I have written something. Okay. So let's just like, what's this? Okay. So here, see, this Dora cake is actually the array name. Okay. We are declaring that there is an array that we are naming as Dora cake. And now this double is actually specifying like what kind of data will be stored in this array. Okay, that is double. And in this square bracket, we are telling that, okay, there will be 5 elements in this array. Are you getting it? Is it clear? Yes or no? Okay, I'm assuming yes. Moving ahead. Now there is C++ array declaration. See, I have just data type, array name, and then array size. For example, int x is equals to bracket, square bracket 6 and semicolon. Now you know how to declare an array. That's like a one big thing. Now int, that's there. Now in C++, okay, now how, if you want to call, like if you want to access one data, or if you want to work on one specific element stored in the array, how you do it? Like how you tell compiler, okay, go to this element in the array. So all the position in an array have a like a key or address. Okay, like your house has address, right? So house number 1, 2, 3, 4. So just like that, all the elements have its address. So these are the boxes, like we created some 6 elements, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in this, right? So all this address is like, the address is 0, house number 0. It's like a default thing, like a tricky thing that you need to remember, that the first element has the address 0 and the last will have, that is the size minus 1. That is, here the size is 6, so 6 minus 1, 5. You'll understand in due course of time, don't worry. So you are storing all the elements here. So how you will access it? See this code. You can see the pointer. So when you want to tell the compiler, okay, go and do this on this element, how you will tell it? So you will give the name of the array, that is Dora cake, and then inside the square brackets you will be like index. You'll give the index number. So if I want to give ask them to do the second element of the array, I will be like size minus 1. That is, size is 6. Sorry, the element that I want, sorry, the second element that I want. So the element, desired element minus 1. So element number 2, that is 2 minus 1. So I'll give array 1. So see, you can see it here. X bracket 1. So it is the element number 2. Now the next step, now you know how to access the elements. Now you need to know like how you enter or store the values in array. So there are actually 2 ways. Now just see in this side, in the left side, okay? It's pretty clumsy, but just try to focus with the pointer. So way 1 is, you declare the elements while, like you tell the compiler, okay, these are the values, while you declare the array itself. So integer you allow, and then equal to sign, and in curly bracket you enter all the 6 numbers, and then you close the bracket, semicolon. And this is how the compiler stores a value. See, 19 is having the index 0. This addresses now are given a technical term called index, and plural of index is indices. So we stored the value in the array while we declared that, okay, we are creating an array called X, which has 6 elements in it. Now there is also another way to do that. Instead of specifying the size here, see in this area, int X in bracket we gave, this bracket tells actually the compiler, okay, this is an array. Otherwise, if you wrote just int is equals to X, it would be like just this would throw error. Okay, so this square bracket tells the compiler that it's an array. So you just tell all the numbers, and the compiler is pretty genius, and it's like, okay, it has 6 numbers. Other way to do is you just leave some of the elements. Okay, 6. I declared that it has 6 elements. I only told the compiler 3 elements to store. So it will automatically assign some value to the remaining ones. That is 0. And we can add numbers on it. So this was the one way. The other way is we are taking the input from the user and storing it. Now this is something you will be using a lot in your C++. Yeah, like a lot of quite interesting and questions that you'll be getting in your examination are based on this simple yet lengthy one. Like you will be using the same code again and again in the same program to solve questions. See, so this means we are declaring that we have an array of consisting of 5 elements. We are asking the user to enter 5 elements. So now we are taking the input. Instead of taking C in 1, 2, 3, 4, we are using a for loop here. See how much coding space it saves in trouble also. We take int, use the for loop to take one by one all the 5 input from the user. Now we are like, okay, the numbers are. Now to print also we are using another for loop. It's really easy. You can just see the condition and read it out. It will make sense. We just went through this topic. So this is way 1 and this is way 2. How you can enter and store values in array. Now this is a homework question. The question is, you will display the sum and average of the array elements. So what you have to do is you will specify, you will declare an array, you will assign some values. You can either do it by the either way that we have discussed in the previous slide. Okay, and now what you will do is you will have to display the sum of all the elements of the array, and then you have to also calculate and show, like you have to print the average of all the elements in the array. That's the question. So the thing is, it will be using a lot of logic, and you'll be using all the topics, like for all the looping statement, decision statement, everything, and then you'll be using operators as well. So it's good. Now we are doing this. There is also a subtopic of array. We'll just go through it quickly. So that's called multiple dimensional. So till now, this was one dimension, right? In a single line, all these things were stored. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Now there is multidimensional. This is what you learned in class 12th, right? That square matrix and whatnot. So there are 2 kind of arrays, more multidimensional, 2D and 3D. So how do we declare it? 2D array, see, we are just giving the row number 3 and 4 is the column number. Similarly for this 3D, x2, this is the row, this is the column, this is the height. So just I told you how to declare it, and you can just try to print it out as well. Take it as an assignment and do. Now this is how you will be storing numbers. So see how this is just like the matrix. 1, 1, instead of 0, 0, then it will be like row 0, 1, 0, 2. Okay, this is how the values will be assigned. See, in multi-dimensional array, entered values are stored row-wise. Okay, so suppose in a single line, if I'm giving the values of this 3, 4 now, I'm giving like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, dot till 12. So how it will be stored is first 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, 4 here. Now 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It will be stored like this. We just went through that. Okay, so that was the topic of array. Any doubts till now?
How do we enter a value at a specific index in an array?
See, it's like this. In this code, you can see, right? Instead, you take a number, you directly see here. See this declaration, na? You in like
Yeah.
you specify declare an array called A, and you give the size suppose 100. Now you're like index like A bracket, suppose any position you tell me you want to enter.
Let's say 71.
71. So you'll be like A square bracket, inside of that 71. That is 71 you want, na? So you'll type 70 because it starts from 0, right?
Yeah.
So you'll type 70 and then close is equals to whatever value you want. Suppose you want to enter 21. So you enter 21, then semicolon. So the compiler will add that value to that specific index. Okay.
And the remaining values will be 0 by default, right?
Yeah. By default,
Okay.
it will be 0.
Okay.
Okay. Any more doubts? Any more doubts? Like that's the end of the today's session. It's still a topic of string, and after that the hot topic of C++ starts, where the object oriented learning starts. Okay.
When will be the next class?
Next session would be after, like, we need to.
We'll get back to you for that. Next session, stick to our social media handles and everything. You'll get to know about the second coding unit. Okay?
Okay.
It will be soon.
Any more doubts? If not, that's the end of the session. Thank you.